live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to edition number 13 of Talking Chickens,
Lucky
sponsored
13.
by Lucky number 13. Uh, M&M Exhibition Poultry, sponsored by Rozier's Poultry Supply, as always. Our guest today is Don Schrider. Hi, Don.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good. Doing real good. Don's master breeder of Brown Leghorns, lights and darks. He's had them a long time. Uh, had some good mentors. So we're going to talk to Don today, and we're going to learn everything we ever need to know about Leghorns. Right, Don?
Well, I hope so.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Don? Tell us what you do and how you got started, and kind of get us going into the discussion.
All right. Well, my name is Don Schrider. I live in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, and I've been in poultry for about 48 years now, I guess. Um, I didn't come from a show poultry family. Though my one grandfather did have a mixed flock of bantams, um, which I admired. And two of my neighbors, one had a flock of white leghorns, and the other had a flock of Rhode Island Reds. And when I was about 4 years old, I got this great scheme in my mind that I wanted a chicken. So I was going to go over and help Miss Gussie with her Rhode Island Reds and collect eggs. And I drafted my sister to come along to pretend that she was going to pick up feathers. And I was going to hand her an egg, and then she'd take it back and we'd make a little nest, put it in the sun, and it would hatch, right? That's what birds did. So a lot of holes in this, but I pulled off the grand theft of the egg. And my sister carried it out in a little lunch bag, and we got back to the house, and I made a nest. I put the egg in it. My mom came home, and she's like, "What are you doing over there, Don?" And before I could say a thing, my sister ratted me out, told my mom the whole story. Needless to say, I got in a lot of trouble, and my mom, I told her, I'm so sorry. No, you got to go apologize to Miss Gussie. You got to go tell her what you did. And so this was a life altering moment for me. So as I'm 4 years old, crying, walking across the yards to go tell Miss Gussie, I get there and I'm like, "Miss Gussie, I stole this egg. Here's your egg back." And she's like, "Why, Don Schrider, I can't believe you did that to me." And so, I apologize and all. And well, I don't steal things now. I don't take eggs out of cages at the county fair. I learned
Rookie
my lesson.
quick.
But I've always wanted chickens, and it wasn't until I was about 13 or 14. Well, I guess 12 or 13. Um, I was watching the neighbor's house a couple doors down, watering their plants and feeding their pets while they were on vacation. I look outside and I see a chicken walking along the side of the road. It's like nobody in the area had chickens at that time, or I would have been on it. So I went out and I caught a little white Cochin Bantam hen and brought her back home and got some food for her and kept her for probably 6 months until Fox got her. And then I started getting an aunt gave me a couple of chickens, and I started going to the county fair. Um, and one year I'm at the county fair, and their judge is going along and he's explaining what he's looking for. And here I am, this little scrawny kid. He turns to me and he's like, "Would you like to help?" I'm like, "Yeah," And so over a class of Buckeyes, the judge, Mr. Richard Holmes, everybody knows him as Dick Holmes, hands me a big Buckeye cockerel. And I'm holding him with both arms, and he's going through explaining what he's looking for. And the Buckeye grabs a hold of my arm, and I'm like, "Ah!" And he's like, "Hold still, hold still." And so I had to wait for him to finish judging the bird before I could get the beak off of my arm. And that's how I met my mentor, Mr. Holmes. Um, he was really a walking encyclopedia of knowledge, and he had a memory. He could tell you about the fifth best bird from 1964 and what he bred that bird to. And he could visualize it while he was talking to you and tell you the different points about it. But just a really incredible mind. Besides being a poultry judge, he was also as a make ends meet. He was an actor. He was in that first airplane movie. The one little scene where they say they're on the plane and somebody passes out, and they're like, "Is anybody here a doctor?" And he's like, "Excuse me, I'm a doctor." And that's his big Hollywood line. Other than that, he did
Ah,
other things.
that was him. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that was Dick Holmes. Um, but anyway,
Don, he was like I've heard stories, but he was like a serious theater actor at one time.
yes.
He was in a lot. Somebody might have been Neil Grassball told me he went to D.C. and went to a play that he was in one time. He was a
Yeah.
pretty big deal in the D.C. area for theater.
Oh, and he lived in Texas for a while. He did some traveling. I remember. Oh, I remember hearing stories from people of Dick Holmes showing up on their door. Poultry breeders. Dick Holmes showed up at their door. Well, I was in the area and thought I might
Right.
come by and see your birds. Just unannounced and showing up. But all over the country and even in Canada. Um, but yeah, he was an interesting guy. He was a he was a great poultry judge. The one thing that I think anybody ever held against him was he was not a fast poultry judge.
No.
But if Dick Holmes walked to your poultry yards and said that bird can win anywhere, by golly, it would win anywhere. And he just was 100% on that for us. He had a number of proteges. So there was myself, Wells LaFawn, who used to show, Tim Ballinger, who does show now. A lot of people know Tim. There was also Warren Miller, Doug Empey, who's up in Maine now and has poultry. Paul Gilroy was another one of his proteges, and a few others as well that maybe aren't around as much in the show poultry area.
Excuse me.
But anyway, but yeah, that Dick Holmes was my mentor, and um, there were many times where maybe I bought better quality birds, and Dick would come home and make us stay up. We had to work all night to get the pins right, or that bird couldn't even come out of the cage, out of our shipping coops. And so there was several times where me and Doug Empey and some others pulled all nighters, and then we go to breakfast with Dick at Bob's Big Boy the next day. But if you can imagine, you bought a chicken and you think everything's great, you got to take it home and put it in your pen, and then you end up working on your pen all night long. And but he would look, he would say, "Well, that nail's going to scratch the comb, and this is going to tear up the feathers, and critter can get in here." He knew every possible way that the bird could get damaged.
I had the pleasure one time, and it's been years ago now, and I don't remember where it was. I think it was in Delaware, but I got the judge's uh, dark brown leghorn bantams. He had 5 or 6 entered, and I didn't know it at the time. And he come up to me afterwards, and we had a long chat. And finally had to ask, "How'd I do?" He goes, "Well, you got the one I would have got." So, but yeah, he was always the character. I can remember one year, Mike and I were just kids at Columbus. They hired him to judge, and they locked him in the building overnight because he wasn't done. He always was kind of verbose on his cards, on his coop cards. So they left him in there, and when they got back the next morning, he was still in there, or he was laying on a bench. He did finally get done, but he just slept there in the building. So,
Yeah, yeah. Fred Kittner Dick introduced me to quite a lot of people, and a lot of them had very positive opinion of him as far as personality and such goes. But Fred Kentner one time told me about him being locked in the chicken building all night long, and he said the next morning we came in and he was done judging, and by golly, they were right. And
from
Dick,
Freddie, that's a good compliment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I didn't think Freddie ever agreed with anybody.
But some people remember Fred Kentner of Canada for his white leghorn bantams.
Mike and I
Fred,
have a lot of Freddie stories.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of them we probably shouldn't. Wait, I had a jet going over. A lot of
yeah,
them we
like
Saying,
probably shouldn't tell.
sound like I'm
yeah, like the
landing in the house.
briefcase. Yeah, it carried a briefcase, but yeah, if you know, then you know.
Yeah, yep.
That's right. You
Yeah.
know it. If you know it was, if you know it was in that briefcase.
He actually taught us at about 14 or 15 how to drink Canadian Mist.
On the back of a pickup truck on the tailgate of the Great Lakes Poultry Breeders
Yes.
Association.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Fred liked me right from the beginning and up until he passed away. I'd catch him at Columbus or some other show, and usually in the north. And he was always friendly to me. But Dick had
Yes.
introduced us, and and he was a very knowledgeable guy. But anyway, yeah. So um, uh, Dick started a lot of us off with his Bantam dark brown line, and when he passed away, I ended up with it, and I've kept it going since. Uh, Keep trying to improve it, but I don't know that I've gotten it um, ready yet to go up on Champion Row. It's always a struggle. The females will show, but not in the presence of a male. And so if you have a male in the next cage, you're done. Or on the cage on the other side. You can't get them to spread their tail. When they do spread, they're awesome. But I haven't, in my, well, before I get ahead of myself, the Bantam Dark Browns, Dick would never actually kept them at his own place. He kept them amongst all of us: Tim, me, Paul, Doug, and Warren Miller. He was partners with Phil Roof back when I was young. And anyway, Dick would place birds with you. And then he'd come by and set up breeding pens and monitor things. And then sometimes he would want to take a bird and use it somewhere else. But he managed his flock in the hands of a whole bunch of us. And there was a period of time where Phil Roof was showing in Frederick, and he had these gorgeous, huge tails that he had gotten onto the Bantam Darks. And I was showing in the junior class. It's the one and only time at a fall poultry show I showed in the junior, and I took best of variety. But then I found out Dick's over talking to Phil Roof. I'm like, Mr. Holmes, look, I took best variety. He's like, yeah, nice, nice, nice. And he goes back to talking to Phil Roof, who had best of variety in the open show. And that's when I learned that there wasn't enough competition in the junior class. I wanted to go. I wanted, if I was going to win, I wanted to win against the real guys. And that's the last time I showed as a junior. Um, and after that, ever since then, I've always shown as an adult or open class. But there was a point where I was lower on the totem pole for his Bantam Dark. So I was getting like fourth, fifth string or something like that. And I was a little frustrated about it. So I had gotten out of them. And in fact, I wanted nothing more to do with Leghorns. I was thinking about games. I got a few Cornish. I was thinking about Old English games. And then I walked into the Frederick, Maryland show in the fall of '88 and walked around the corner of the large Leghorn class, and Clint Grimes had a string of light brown Leghorn pullets there, five of them in a row. And it was just like somebody popped me right in between the eyes when I walked around the corner. I was like stunned. And I went to Mr. Holmes, and my God, these are the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And he's like, well, let me introduce you to the owner. So he introduced me to Clint, who was from Harmon, West Virginia. And Clint and I hit it off immediately. He was like meeting another grandfather or something. He was older. I don't know. Some of you might not know who Clint Grimes is, but you know Clell Agler with the Ohio National. Well, Clint and Clell used to run around together. when they were young. And in fact, they too are two of the founders of the Ohio National. But so Clint got to talking to me and he wanted to sell me some birds, but I didn't have very good facilities, so I didn't want to take them yet. So I put him off. And then the next summer, I was building a chicken house and was going to be able to keep the birds. And I knew then I wouldn't have a problem with predators or anything like that. So I reached out to Dick and asked him, Mr. Holmes says, do you know how to get a hold of Clint Grimes? And he says, funny you should ask. I just got a letter from Clint. He's getting rid of his birds and he wanted to make sure you got some. And that's how I got into my large light browns. So at Columbus in the fall of '89, Clint brought the birds and I bought a couple of trios. And then the next spring, he still had a couple of birds running around. So the next spring, he had me come get those as well. Um, in the course of all this, Dick introduced me to Francis Leanna of Wisconsin and Jim Rhines Jr., who was in North Carolina at the time, from Massachusetts. Of course, the Rhines were northeastern Brown Leghorn men. And these two guys took me under their wing right away and started talking to me. And over the next few years, I was getting letters from Clint. And once a year, I'd drive birds up to Clint's and set up exhibition cages and show him what the birds were looking like. He was a Vietnam vet. He had been exposed to Agent Orange and his lungs were giving out. So, so he died in '92, I believe it was, sometime in '92. But up until then, I'd go up and show him how the birds were progressing. He'd write me letters and give me tips. And then Jim Rhines and Francis Leanna did the same for me. I didn't drive birds to them, but that's really how I got into Browns. But that's also where I got the knowledge, what to look for, some of the fine points. For instance, Francis liked to spread the neck feathers, the cape, um, and look move the hackle feathers aside. Look at the cape, which is the back where it meets the neck. And on a light brown leghorn male, you want that to be black. If it's got shafting there, the daughters will have shafting. If it has lacing there, the daughters will have edging on their body feathers. Um, Clint, he would pick a bird up and he'd tap it, like he'd tap it on the breast and look at you, not tell you what he was, not tell you anything, right? Just look at it and make sure you notice what he's looking at. Then he moved to another section of the bird, like the saddle or the sickles, and he'd tap them. And I'd have to go back to my standard and try to figure out what was he looking at? What's he trying to show me? And I just, it was incredibly clever because it made me search out the knowledge. Um, but so anyway,
You probably
yeah,
learn more that way than them just straight out telling you, because you had to
yeah,
actually go dig it out.
yeah. And when it came to breeding leghorns, while Mr. Holmes was an excellent poultry judge, as a newbie, sometimes it could be a little confusing on what was ideal shape. We'd walk along, like, say, the Leghorn Isles in York. There'd be back then in the early '90s, there were a whole bunch of Leghorn guys.
Stack three high.
Yeah. And we'd walk along, and Dick would just say, wow, look at the type on this bird. And then he'd say, wow, look at the type on that bird. And the birds look completely different to me. And at first, I thought that was something's wrong with me, that I see them as different. Later, I realized that I was seeing the difference, and that was not a wrong thing. But essentially, good leghorn, um, you want a medium size back, not a long back, not a short back, a medium sized back. You want the legs centered directly over the center of the back. And if you take from the top of the neck and draw a curve down the body, across the back, and up to the tail, the dead center of that curve, it should be no breaks in that, but the dead center of that curve should be right above the legs. And then, of course, you have to have a little bit of depth. If you look at the profile of the Leghorn, the front of the bird's not quite as deep as the back. You don't want them dead even. You want the back end a little bigger, and that goes along with having more room for egg organs in the back. But then a leghorn, the word leg is in there. So the feathered, you have your shanks and your thighs, but you want a little bit of feather, the feathered part of the legs extending below the breastbone. They shouldn't be squat down on their legs. If they're squat down as a cockerel or pullet, they will never have long enough legs. And the legs don't have to be super long. It's not like Langshan where you have like the one third, one third, one third rule. You know, the leg length is one third, the body one third, the neck length one third to give you your height. But on the leghorns, you just need to have a little bit of legs showing below the breast, um, really below the keel bone. So then on the top, when you hold a leghorn in your hand, ideally it looks like a rectangle. So the bottom two tail feathers should extend out. They shouldn't be closed this way. They should be open this way if you're looking at the back of the bird, so that the width of the body carries right out through the tip of the tail feathers. Um, and when you start getting all that together, then you've got decent proportions. Um,
That's
I
probably one
also,
of the biggest faults I see nowadays in a lot of birds is that taper back to point instead of being, like you said, a rectangle. Another thing I think that a lot of people are deceived on leghorns, especially females, and I showed Mike this up at the Buckeye show a couple weeks ago. You don't know how much they weigh until you get a hold of them. There was a bird there everybody thought was too big, and when I got a hold of it, it was about right. And there was another one that looked smaller, but I bet it weighed 4 pounds more. It was that much bigger.
wow.
It was a fat old hen, but she was so tight feathered that you couldn't tell it until you got her out of the cage. So they're a very deceiving bird, I think, in my mind, as a judge until you handle them. So
Yeah.
they're probably one of the worst breeds to cage judge, because until you get them out and get a hold of them, you can't feel that body. You can't, you just don't know until you get a grab on them. They can look beautiful in the cage, but as soon as I get them out, they taper like this all the way back. So it's a tough breed to judge from outside the aisle.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I do concur. And, you know, there's reasons for that. You go back, the modern leghorn type you see in the standard was brought about by Dan Young of white leghorn fame back in the early 1900s. And everybody else found that a pleasing shape. And so the American ideal ended up following that in all colors. But Dan, he carried, I think it was 6 different families of birds and for different purposes. Quite a clever guy. If you have the opportunity to do research into old historical books, anything you can read on Dan Young is well worth your time. But one of the
And
things,
he and Schilling were good friends, so that's why
yeah,
you see so many pictures of Dan Young's birds. And because Schilling was a white leghorn guy too at one time, Bantams. But I just you say that, and I was just reading an old American Poultry Journal from 1919, and there's a whole section in there on Dan Young and his leghorns. Now they look nothing like what we got now, but they were still into the production part of it then too, and Dan made his living selling birds too.
yeah,
So the marketing was pretty intense, and I remember some of the prices, but I'm thinking like a setting of eggs back in 1919 was like $15 or $20, which God, I don't know what that would be in today's money, but that was a pretty good chunk for that time.
yeah. Well, and so there were birds sold over $200 a bird back then as well. So if you can even imagine that, you have to add a
Yeah,
zero today.
maybe a couple. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, but Dan, one of the things that was so clever about Dan is, you know, and I think this is a failing of a lot of breeders of white birds today. Um, Dan Young met a young fellow that was showing his Pioneer Farm. You all have heard of him, Elia Marsh. And Elia Marsh had a cockerel that took fourth or fifth place, I forget which, against Dan Young. And Dan Young comes up to him and he says, "Do you know what you have in that cockerel?" And he's like, No, what do I have in that cockerel?" He goes, "You have leather feather." And that was a term for a white feather that was dense enough that you don't see through it.
It was thick.
And a lot of times today, you're seeing an absolutely wonderful bird, but their feathers are like tissue paper. You feel like you could touch it and it would make holes in it. It's so transparent. Uh, the last time I saw an example of leather feather was actually Jonathan Patterson's white Wyandottes. And I just had to make a comment to him about that. Just absolutely wonderful, solid feathers, especially tail feathers. And that quality, yeah, as Dan Young told young Leah Marsh, he's like, breed from that cockerel exclusively. Get this quality in your line because it's very difficult to achieve.
Yep. We see that a lot in our white varieties of the breeds that we have, and I've always called it the thin, thick feather. So a black or a partridge Wyandotte, for instance, has a real thick feather and it holds shape better. And when you get into the white varieties, they tend to get that little paper thin feather. You got more fluff, you got less shape and conformity in whatever breed it is. So that is a trait that really, if you can find it, you want to stamp it in. And we've worked really hard with the white coach and bantams because they'll also get in the males. We'll get what we call stringy sex feathers. Their hackle and saddle feathers will get real stringy, almost to where they look like a fly tying thing going on there. And every time they have that real thin feather. So I've never heard that described that way, but that's something that every white breeder looks for all the time.
Yeah, and I hope more of them will. But if you have a bird like that, try to keep that quality.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, but now Dick Holmes, of course, was a poultry judge, and Paul Gilroy became a poultry judge. And I and Doug Empey and others, we used to read and try to memorize the standard. Always toyed with the idea, but what I really wanted to understand right from the beginning, and what I decided I wanted to become, was a breeder. And one of the things I told Dick about this, and I'd ask him questions, and finally, I think I asked him either more questions than he could handle, or maybe I got into some depth on my questions about how you breed, how you maintain breeding plans, the results, what do you do? And Dick finally said, "Why don't you ask my father?" Because Dick Holmes's father was a master breeder of large fowl dark brown leghorns. And in fact, he and Dick used that line to originate Dick's Bantam dark brown leghorns. And essentially, all the Bantam dark brown leghorns in the country now, to the best of my knowledge, all of them go back to Dick Holmes's line at some point. Anyway, but Dick's dad wrote copious notes. Um, he was a bloody axe kind of guy. He would breed from 2 to 3 trios of birds per year, and he would look to save three 3 to 5 males and up to 20 females, and that was it. He'd hatch 150 birds out of 2 or 3 trios and would get down to about 25 birds. And he would slaughter all the other birds. And young Dick Holmes, they go over on weekends. Actually, Dick's dad didn't keep the birds at his house either. He kept them at his I don't know if it was his father or father-in-law, but Dick's grandfather uh, had property with birds on it, and they go over on weekends, sort through the birds. His dad would leave instructions on feed and such, and then they leave, come back the next weekend. But his dad would they go through the birds. His dad would pull an axe out and start killing birds. And there was a point where Dick realized his dad was killing birds that were better than his competitors even had. And Dick wanted to find a home for all those birds. And so uh, Dick so anyway, but Irvin would write these copious notes about each and every bird and why it was culled down, and his breeding, the methods of breeding, and he saved feathers of all the birds. I have a collection of Irvin Holmes's large fowl dark brown leghorn feathers that I can refer back to. So it's really kind of interesting thing.
An
Go through.
interesting side story on him. So I believe it was Neil Grassball told me this. He was actually the presidential photographer. So for like Eisenhower and I think a couple past that, he actually did the presidential pictures. And I know he did some poultry pictures at one time as well. But that was his big claim to fame, was he was the presidential, or Irwin. Well, I think it was Irwin. was the
Irvin.
Irvin? Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the presidential photographer.
Yep. And he was friends with Elias Gallup of the Gallup poll, um, um, uh, Harry Lamon. He worked closely with the guys at the experimental poultry station in Greenbelt. So he was an early proponent of offsetting faults and multiplying good traits, and wrote about those sorts of things early on. Um, but anyway, so he took a lot of the research seriously and used it in his breeding pens. But for me, what I wanted to become was a breeder. Um, you know, poultry judging's nice, and I'm glad you guys do the work, but I still enjoy the competition, and I'm smart enough about it. I learned a long time ago that I try not to stand around and watch the judging. It's a little hard in small shows sometimes, but I try to walk away and come back later and see who won. I enjoy it a whole lot
Yeah.
more. Um, I have no stress. I don't care if my bird typed or not typed. I'd rather not know that she typed like dynamite and the judge didn't place her anyway. I'd rather give him the benefit of the doubt that he saw something in the other bird that was better, you know. But low stress for me, and maybe less pressure on the judges.
It, Matt and I do the same thing. I mean, our normal routine is we're pretty much ready to go when we hit there on usually Friday. We put the birds in, white birds and everything, if they need something as they're going in. We bed them deep, feed them, water them. We're done. We get out of there. We don't keep going back. When it comes judging morning, we always take that kit down like we're going to do something. 90% of the time, we look at them and pop the cage and go, "Yep, you look good enough," and walk away. And don't. I mean, there's several times we've been setting. We have a tendency to bullshit, as you well know, and we'll be sitting somewhere having a pop or a water and talking, and people come and say congratulations. It's like, what happened? We don't. We wait till they're done, and then we go back through and look. Like you say, the stress level. I don't know why you'd want to hang over cages and everything. We've said a million times on this podcast. It's about the people. We'll go to another aisle where they're judging something else. We'll watch them judging this bullshit with the people that are in that aisle and play. But yeah, we do the same thing. I mean, I used to be I'd hang, and after it got so that showing chickens wasn't as much fun as it should have been because I was too busy worried about one person's opinion in that one moment in time. And you would, then if you don't see it that way and you get mad, yeah, well, then you just ruined your weekend. And in this day and age, you just ruined $1,000 you spent to win a ribbon or a trophy.
Well, now that he
You know,
talks about that, one thing that I told him when he first started judging, because he kind of followed me up a few years later. But I have seen people fussing over birds actually ruin their bird on Champion Row.
Oh
So,
my.
Sunday morning they get out to show sheen and grease up the comb and do all this and haven't fed it, for since it won the day before and it's starving to death. I've seen them actually ruin birds. So I learned this from old Harry Hallback a long time ago. On Sunday morning, just leave it alone. Don't get up there and fuss with it. I mean, if it's dirty, yeah, wipe it off or whatever, but straighten up a few feathers. But don't get up there and grease it up again and spray all that stuff on them because at that point, it's not really going to help you. I can almost guarantee you that. You've got 3 or 4 judges, got a few seconds to look at every bird, and it's got to snap. It's got to hit them right off the bat. So I've always said to everybody, I've seen a lot of exhibitors do themselves a crime, especially with waterfowl on Champion Row on Sunday morning. Now we don't get that much anymore since we have a lot of one-day shows. But even then, after we get them all on Champion Row, before we go up there, they're over there fussing. And, it got up there on its own. Just leave it alone is my advice.
That is good advice. And one of the things people don't realize is you think about the physical presentation of the bird, but you leave out the bird's mind entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And you take a female, often they are uncomfortable in the new moment. And then you pull them out and muff with them and put them back in. You're better off just letting them get acclimated and feel secure than their show. But the mind, in my opinion, temperament of a bird is not too far down the list of importance if you want to go for champion a show. You got to have enough, like with a leghorn, it's got to be sprightly enough that it reacts to you. If it just stands there and it's a pullet, you're not going to get her to open up her tail and move around and show herself off. So you got to have a little bit of sprightliness where maybe you can get away. Well, if you have a Plymouth Rock, you could end up with dump tail on Champion Row. It gets too comfortable.
Langshangs, same way. I mean, we fight Langshangs all the time. And if you got to mess around
and
2 or 3 minutes to get them to hold that tail up, then we're done with them. Yeah. That should be what they do. You go in, you give them the shot. They don't throw the tail up. You're done.
Nothing makes you look
there's
worse.
No time.
Nothing makes you look worse than as a judge at a 2-day show as a Leghorn female on Champion Row on Sunday morning.
Oh,
because they could have been beautiful all day long Saturday, but you get in, and Old English will do it to you too, Old English females. But you get in there on Sunday and she's wanting to lay an egg or she's over dumped in the corner. And my daughter for years she had saved her own money up, and in '99 at the Boston show, she went up to Don Nelson and bought a trio of white Leghorn Bantams, which was the old Ed Ritz line. So it was very different strain than anything that was back here because they were so much smaller. I think George Beyer still shows that line, but they were very small birds. But her problem with them was not that she didn't have good birds. They were too tame. So those birds would sit on her hand, sit on her shoulder, and you put them in a show cage and they wanted to come out and be held. They didn't want to show. And that was always my fault with her birds was that you hold them too much and they don't have enough zip to want to show. They just got to sit there in the cage.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line between just damn crazy and trying to chase it around the cage and you never do get, or they're so tame, they're so relaxed that they won't do anything. Yeah, exactly.
I had large fowl backgrounds and I really love those birds. I had to kick them out of the way to feed them. They were not like some of them I've judged since then. They were not wild at all. I mean, they waited for me to come in to feed them. They would set. They were a better setting hen than any old game hen I ever seen. They would set on, 15, 20 eggs and hatch off every chick. And don't you dare reach down there to get one of them.
Oh no! So, people are always amazed when Leghorn females go broody. But I usually once a year I'll get a female. I'll let raise a clutch of eggs. But the first 2 days after those chicks come off, that hen will kill you to get you away from her. She's relentless. but you know, I think I heard on your show when Jeff Hallback was on, gave advice about finding a bird that matches your temperament. And I'd have to say that the Leghorns probably match mine. I'm a little more active, maybe a little flighty. I don't know. But, you know, that was good advice. I tried Jersey Giants once. A decent quality pair of Jersey Giants, marvelous birds. Another distant neighbor had those when I was growing up, and I huge, big, beautiful flock of them. So I got to see good ones back when I was young, but I got a pair thinking I was going to try those as a dual purpose American breed and show in the American class. This was in the 90s, late 90s. And I opened up the chicken house, and the Leghorn pullets come running and flying out, leaping, just happy as can be. And last but not least, come out the Jersey Giants. And they hop out the door. And then they stand and they look up at me. And I'm like, oh my God, are you even alive?
Yeah,
That's joy.
a
Yeah.
little different.
And
Big,
bless the
co-
people that
big,
raised them, but that was not for me.
big coaches do that. They come barreling out of the barn, but you know they run like they're going to go somewhere, and they go like 5 or 6 foot and
Stop.
That's it.
stop and look at you, and they're fairly active though if you leave them out enough. Now the bantams they don't do shit, but they'll wander up under the trees and mess around, but they don't do anything with any great urgency, except the buck bantams, and they're just nuts. But as far as the large fowl, now yeah, and if you don't watch where you're walking, you'll be on the ground because you'll trip on one of them big bitches
Mhm.
every single time.
I
They
don't think
don't
there's
move.
a more beautiful bird than a bunch of dark browns out on green grass. That was always
Nope,
everybody
there
says
isn't.
silver lace Wyandottes. That nope. When I had those dark browns and I turned them out, even the neighbors would say those are the most beautiful birds I ever seen. And he goes, they look black until they get out in the sun, and then you can see all the colors. I said, yeah, they're a pretty intricate chicken, and I did really like them. I wished they still had them, but that was one of those we need space and
Yeah.
large fowl take up lots of room.
And,
So
and you can't breed it all. Yeah.
no, and I've looked for dark brown bantams and I just haven't seen anything. Uh, I know most of them are just insane crazy. At least the ones I judge. Um, I believe Steve Wadzikowski up in New York has some dark browns, and his aren't too crazy, but man, there's some of them back when Atwood and those guys were still around, and we do the old Lucasville show. There'd be big classes of dark brown bands,
Yeah.
and Lord, Mark would show a bunch, and I don't think some of them ever seen a human until they got to the show. So it was always fun getting them in and out of the cage and trying to get them to pose and all that. So I haven't found that line of dark brown bantams yet, but if I ever found it, I probably would snag them.
Hmm. But yeah, Mark was a great guy. I remember one time I was standing there, and a junior came up to him and said to him he wanted a bird. Mark reached in his coops and pulled a bird out for him. And the junior looked at Mark and he said, "Mr. Atwood, you are a master breeder, but your showmanship isn't very good." Because he just reached in and
And he
Uh,
would
grabbed it,
he would
here,
bring them in the
trying to get
back.
one out without all of them coming
He
out.
was kind of
yeah,
like Tommy Stanley. He would have crates of chickens in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And the showbirds were in with the sailbirds, and he was just grabbing them. And he always, even at Columbus, he would always bring a slew of them to sell. So he kept the people in light and dark brown leghorns for a long time, and all the combs and everything, because he sold plenty of them. There, you can never accuse Mark of hoarding birds because he
That's
spread them
right.
around.
Yeah, he'd sell them for less than the feed he put into them
Yeah, no
too.
kidding. I mean, he was very reasonable. Yeah,
Yeah,
I had got some from him a few times. That with dark browns, you always need to fix this or that. There's never no comfort level. So, and then
yeah,
I'd have to ask because I wasn't no expert, but I always had Neil. That was his thing. He'd always say, now you need one like this. Let's go see Mark. And then we dig through the crates and find the one we needed. But nice. I miss him. And I actually, of all the shows that have went by the wayside, I miss those old Lucasville shows probably more than anything. Because we got to see a lot of people there we didn't see all the time.
Yeah, Lucasville was a fun show. I love going to it. Missed that show, but I'm glad we still have Columbus, and I think a lot of we also have the Northeastern Poultry Congress that's for us on the East Coast. So those are two big shows. I think the big shows really help keep the small shows alive, in more than one way. The big shows, you tend to have more people coming with stock from far flung places.
Yep.
But then they also, I think, help inspire the smaller shows. I know, the idea of having a 10,000 bird show when you go to compared to being a kid at a county fair,
Yep.
it's an experience.
It ruined me because the first show I ever went to in '72 was Columbus. So Clay Dove and his mom and dad said, "Would you like to ride down to us to the Ohio National?" Well, I was chicken crazy at that age. Oh yeah. So I go there and I'm like, it was one of the bigger. '72 and '73 was big shows. And now that I look back on it, I didn't know what I was seeing. There was a lot of old time big name breeders there that was never seen again. '73. Mike can tell you, Alex Duffy and Cochins, Ed Miller, a lot of the big names that of our times was there. But the disappointing thing was the next spring we go to the Dayton, Ohio show, the Green Dayton Fancy Feather show, and there's like 1,200 birds. And I walk in, I said, "Where's all the damn chickens? This isn't a show." So it will ruin you for everything else.
Yeah.
They all have their purpose. So we go to do a show in Alabama that's about 400 birds. It's an all Bantam show, but I took Louis Cunningham with me last year when we went down there to judge. He goes, "You know what, Matt? That's the best 400 bird show I ever seen." I said, "Yeah, I've been in a lot of these smaller shows. They don't have the numbers, but the quality's there, and I think we need the mix of both of them."
That is one of the interesting things. There are different little regions that have histories that's even still today. For instance, Pennsylvania has had a history of having good breeders in Pennsylvania, and Virginia, another one. A lot of good breeders in Virginia. Now, Pennsylvania, we haven't had a show in a couple of years. Because of different health concerns on avian influenza and stuff. But Virginia, you go to the Virginia poultry breeders, you're dealing with a small show, and your competition is national quality.
Yep.
I mean, you got Tim Ballinger there, you got John Miles there, Norm Ennis until he passed away recently. Went to that regularly.
You got
Tony
Roebuck there.
Bezok, who
Yeah.
you might remember. Some people might remember.
Yeah, we judged that a couple years ago, and I was glad to see it come back because after Tommy died, it kind of went down a little bit. But I was glad to see those people get that show back together. Now, I don't like the drive to Virginia from here because there's not really a good way to get there without, getting into DC traffic. But we stayed in, they put us up in an Airbnb that was an old plantation house. So Tim Bowles, David Atkins, Mike, and I were in this along with Paul and his granddaughter. So it had about, 10 bedrooms in it, Mike. It was a gorgeous facility that they put us in, and we enjoyed that show very much. And so I told him, I said, the bad thing is it's right after Columbus. So usually we're like, wore down by then, but I would like to get out there and show sometime.
Good people. I mean, that's good because
very
good
well
people,
ran.
Yeah. No matter what happens, good people. And that's a hell of a difference.
Friendly bunch.
Good people.
And they work very hard to help each other.
Yep. Yes, they do. And to help you, whether you're judging or showing, whatever they can do to make it easiest on you to do what you need to do, they're all for it. Now that's a heck of a group of people.
Yep. But anyway, so a lot of good stuff there. What should we go? Well,
let's go to the Buckeyes because I know you were at the Livestock Conservancy for a while.
Yeah.
And you got the Buckeyes coming back, and I wish we'd seen more of them. So they were like hell's a fire everywhere there for a while, but now they're getting down on at least the large fowl. The Bantam classes are still pretty good size, but
Yeah.
the large
Well,
fowl,
Aaron hasn't been showing it in 2 or 3 years. Baker, after they moved, he hasn't raised many, and I mean, he raised hundreds
yeah.
and would show, 50, 75 of them. Well, he hasn't done that lately, and man, you can sure tell when you go to the shows. We might have two, maybe three. It's really strange how the ups and downs of certain breeds are.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the Buckeyes. So I was working at the American Livestock Conservancy. Now they call themselves the Livestock Conservancy, and we were partners on a grant, and there was some money in there that could go to poultry research. So the executive director at the time, Chuck Bassett, came to me and asked me, he's like, what if you had some money, what could we do with chickens? Now, it's a short period of time. It has to have demonstrable results, and they have to apply to um, um, rare historic heritage breeds of chicken, but it would also have to focus on a critically rare American chicken breed, number five at the time, and Buckeye was one of them. And the Buckeye, so I looked up and I said, well, the thing you'd have to do would have to be demonstrating you could get them, you could improve size and meat quality, rate of growth, that sort of thing. Because if you want to go egg production, you're 6 months to first egg, and then another year to measure that, and you're a year and a half in before you have your first set of results. But with meat quality, you can go pretty quickly. And I had just gotten into Buckeyes, so I suggested Buckeyes. Also, there was a couple of hatcheries at the time were offering Buckeyes. Oddly enough, you had Urch, you had there was a young guy out in Kentucky. I've forgotten his name, and then one of the big names got into Buckeyes. So I was the communication director and their poultry expert, but Jeanette Behringer was their program person. And so we worked up a program where we did old hands on techniques, the same techniques that were applied in the early 1900s, well, maybe up to the mid 1900s. But measuring heart girth, measuring meat, measuring pelvic bones and pelvic spread, all these sorts of hands on appraisal. And really, Walter Hogan is the one that probably did the most with it. Around 1910, they had the book published, The Call of the Hen. But he was the one that really came out with hands on appraisal. And then a college had stolen his ideas. And so a bunch of people put their money together to fund it so Walter could have a book and get credited for originating that. But essentially, a chicken in lay, the hormones are such that it causes the tissues to elongate and soften. Just like an animal giving birth, right before birth, the hormones get high on, say, a cow or something. And anybody that knows cattle knows day or two before, day or two after, that cow might kill you if if you go for her calf to ear tag it.
Mhm.
But chickens are essentially giving birth every other day of the year or every day of the year, depending on how many eggs they lay. Um, but so I approached the idea with taking the Buckeye and using hand-on traits to try to improve them. And with that, I would also donate chicks to the thing, groups of 25 chicks. I got a hatchery license while I was down there in North Carolina for my incubator setup. Got inspected once a year. They walk in my guest room, walk into the closet, and there's my incubators. Okay, everything's clean. You're good to go. And so I was able to do three generations. And the last generation, we were up to 1,000 chicks that year. And we would place them with the right to take back up to 10% of the flock for breeding purposes. So a lot of farmers in North Carolina shared in this. Some of them wanted to breed, so we'd leave birds there or switch birds around a little bit to make sure the matings were what we thought would work. But we gained a pound of weight and reduced the time to process from 20 to 16 weeks. Um, and this in 3 generations. And I showed the Buckeyes, started showing them. You want to talk about making an impression? I loved handing somebody a Buckeye because it looks like essentially sort of a short back Rhode Island Red with a pea comb, but they're very meaty. And it always would delight me to hand them a Buckeye and then watch their hands go down when I let go.
It was like grabbing a cement block.
Cement block. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they were like bowling balls when you went to catch them. They'd jump up right into your face. It'd be like being punched or something. They'd hit you like a 7 pound bowling ball hitting you in the face or something along those lines. But so the Buckeyes, Jeanette uh, was after me to write up what we were doing so that we could share it with others and they could do it in parallel. So I wrote 3 chapters of the Buckeye Project, hands-on poultry breeding that the Livestock Conservancy will still send you on PDF. And I took pictures of processed Buckeyes, holding them in the same way that I held live Buckeyes, so that you could see what's going on under the feathers. And this idea of imagining the bird under the feathers was very big for me. Um, in fact, as I was trying to become a breeder and trying to figure out things, my brown leghorn stick was telling me we're too long in the back, but they didn't seem overall too long. And I kept trying to figure it out. And when I figured out what was happening was the buildup wasn't starting soon enough. And then one day, Schilling, I read an old Bantam Association yearbook, and there it is. Schilling had drawings and everything saying,
Yep.
it, and of course, used to be page 26 on some of the standards, but that cutaway of the white leghorn and the Plymouth Rock showing them with and without feathers, a good and a bad example, one from above and one from the side. Um, so you lay your hand on the back of the bird, you can start to appraise that skeletal shape underneath. And if you've got a long straight break, a long back with a straight break instead of buildup, it's because the feathers are filling in a gap, which shows the body is too small, not going to be a productive bird, especially in Leghorn. But we did all this with Buckeyes, and then the climax of it was showing at Columbus one year. I took Reserve American with my Buckeye, and people were up there asking. Now Buckeyes from Ohio, and Ohio National, of course, in Ohio, and there were so many people up there saying, "What is that?" They never even knew what a Buckeye was.
Yep.
Um, uh, as I
Up
understand,
until the time you got them going again, the only ones that I ever seen, Raleigh Blockberger and Ed Mongold had took Mrs. Metcalf's old formula and recreated them, and they were in that process. So probably not as typey as yours because I always thought they were a little gamey, and they also got that meanness from the games, the Cornish and whatever they put up. They had the formula. They did it. The Bantams they got pretty decent, but the large fowl never were there. They were still pretty snaky and still
yeah.
pretty gamey. But up until the point when you brought them back, those are the only ones I'd ever seen in 50 some years around here.
But uh, Chris McCary, Michael Sullivan, they got into the large Buckeyes through Dwayne Urch. Um, Laura Haggerty got into them from the Matt, the guy from Kentucky, Matt something or another. I can't think of his last
Yeah,
name.
I can't remember. I know you're talking
Um,
about.
but and then there were several others out there that found old lines or started their own, and a lot of great guys were breeding and doing a good job with them for a while.
Mhm.
And Aaron got into them, and I came to a point where I decided I needed to let the Buckeyes go. I just can only build so many chicken houses here. I don't have a large enough property or pocketbook
Yeah.
to deal with it. So I let them go. Aaron and Chris split up some of my birds, and maybe that's still in their breeding. I don't know. But yeah, Aaron seemed to kind of step out as top showman, and was for the large fowl. But the bantams, oh my goodness, the refinement in the bantams in the last maybe 5 years. Some incredible Buckeye bantams out there right now. They look every bit the miniature large fowl.
There was a huge class of Mike and I did the APA National or the ABA National, excuse me, out in Oklahoma 2 years ago, I believe. And I think there was 40 of them in there. I actually
Yeah.
made it a point to go down through and look at them, and I was impressed. They've got the size way down on them to where I think they're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have come a long ways, and you just don't see many large fowl anymore. Like, I think some of it may be because Aaron's kind of backed off his showing because he always brought a big display of them, but there just don't seem to be as many people with them as what there was at one time, because for them to go best American, like you said, was a feat, because you knocked all those rocks and red guys to the curb a little bit for a few years anyways.
Yeah, well, make them not rest on their laurels.
Yep.
Early on, Jim Rhines, like I say, took a shine to me, and he started coaching me on breeding methods with the Brown Leghorns. And of course, between he and his father and his brother David, which many people that have barred rock bantams
Yep.
will
I knew
David Rhines, he was the man
Yeah.
in Bantam Barred Rocks. But they had some interesting ideas, but they put 90 years into it. And so maybe I'm somewhat of a progression of that. I don't know, kind of doing my own thing, but yeah, they would give me a lot of tips. And there was one point we had a national meet, and in the large light brown class, we had a huge meet, but only Jim and I placed. And I'm like, Jim, we're going to have to back off and let some of these guys win to keep them interested. He said, oh, no. He said the exact opposite. He said, pour the coal on. He said, really, really put it to them. He said, it'll make them work to try to beat you. And so over the years, I've had my ups and downs, raccoon attacks or what have you, that kind of make you stumble a little bit. But I've tried to continue that, and the large light browns are doing pretty good. And there's a lot of guys interested breeding them that have my respect. When I go to the shows, it's not like I brought birds, therefore I get best of variety. It's I got to get past this guy, or he's out conditioned me. I look at it, I walk the aisles, I look at it and I say, what does his bird have that I failed on? So always, always trying to figure out what I need to do better at.
Yep. There's always room for improvement on everything.
Yeah.
That's maturity. That's just maturity to know that, it's a good thing, and we're kind of that way in coaching bantams too. Is I like to lay it to them.
Yeah.
If you're gonna beat me, beat me, and we get beat, but that's a good thing. It kind of gets you because maybe you wanted to win, but it's a good thing because it means that others are doing and are studying and are trying. I think conditioning is a lost art, and I've seen people that have really good birds that can't condition anything, and I've seen people that can condition anything, and I appreciate those. And I mean, after all these years, and sometimes uh, Don, you know what to do, but you just don't do it, and that's the time when you get your ass beat, but you know why, and it helps you. It reinvigorates you to go back in. The competition's a great thing, man, and it's great to when you have breeders and showmen that are in the same breed as you or the same class as you, and you go about thumping each other back and forth, but you're good friends. That's what makes things interesting.
Yeah.
That you learn from each other, and yeah, they want to win, or yeah, I want to win, But hey, if we're there, Matt and I, and we're wanting to win, and Matt McCammon wins, that's great because he's a really good friend. Or Marty Abrahamson. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
Roebuck. I mean, you're competitors, but you're good friends, and you'll do anything for each other. Yeah, you need that bird. Go ahead and take it. You know what I mean? So when people are afraid and they try so hard just to win and they hang on so tight, that's when you lose it. Because when you do lose it, no one's coming to help. There are no lifelines. There's no phone calls.
that's right.
So
Yeah,
I think that's an important thing for the young exhibitors or the old exhibitors that their whole life depends on whatever the hell that guy or gal does in that 1 minute he's looking at your chicken. Well, that's not the right attitude,
yeah,
because the right attitude is it's a process.
yeah.
Like you've been in it for almost 50 years. We've been in it for 50 years. We're still enjoy it. I mean, there's days, but you still enjoy it, and you like being there. And if you don't go, like I'm not going, you think, well, I know what's happening down there this weekend. I really should have went, because it's the people in the company get you flowing, man. I mean, it's a great thing.
Well, there was one time we had a little uh, dinner party, actually, Gay and Rudy Bjordy's house. There were some poultry people. Well, Gay's still around. Rudy's passed away now. But they had Mr. Holmes over, Paul Gilroy, and myself. And Dick pulled out a collection of shilling pictures of white leghorn males, uh, 6 or 7 of them. And he laid them out and he said to Paul and I, he says, I want each of you to judge these and tell me which is the best birds and put them in order. And so Paul went through, put them in order. I went through, I put them in a different order. And Dick smiled and he said, he just sat there and smiled. And Gay said, well, which one of them was right? And he says, well, they both were. Uh, he said Paul judged them as this is a chicken show. Which bird's going to get the ribbon today? Don judged them on which bird would I keep the breed from.
Yep.
That's probably, you brought up a great point there. And I try to tell this because I was the head of the judges licensing on the ABA side for a while. And you have to take that breeder's hat off when you're judging and you're looking at a show bird today. And that is very difficult for some people because they can't do it. And we find ourselves a lot of times going down through a class, I'd like to have this bird to do whatever with, but you're not looking at breeding birds at that point. And you have to be able to take that hat off. And it's hard if you've been like me. I bred chickens for 25, 30 years before I started judging them. And that was a difficult thing, especially in my breeds. I'm getting there. You have to just stop and focus on, I got to pick the best show bird here today. And that's very difficult. And that's what when new people come, I always tell them that you have to not think about what you're breeding. You have to think about show birds. You got a minute to look at it. We got to do this fairly quick because everybody doesn't want to be here all day. And that's a trick that's hard for some people. Some people never get it.
Yeah. Well, and then there's barn blindness.
Yeah, there's a
You're
lot of that
so
too.
you're working so hard to get whatever the curve of the beak right, or the wing position right, or the leg position right, or height. And you go through, you see somebody else's birds, and they don't have that right, and that's where you stop. What you miss is everything else they had right that you didn't. And I've known some people that would get up and get upset and loudly proclaim to the judge that he messed up and stuff while he's still in the aisle judging.
Oh yeah.
I've seen well, a handful of people, but it's not you missed it. You know why your bird was good. What you don't realize is why the other bird was good, because it had where you were weak, and all you saw was it didn't have where you were strong.
Yep.
It's always a good thing. And I learned it quick on Champion Row with a lot of the old timers that many of them aren't with us anymore, but that scale of points. And I preach it to these young kids and everybody. I don't want to hear what you like. You tell me what the point cuts are on that. If you don't like that comb, how many point cuts is that? And if you think of it that way, you realize that those things you're talking about aren't that big of a deal. Number one, we got to have 60 points on a color bird and 70 on a white bird. Overall type, does it have that? And when you start, a lot of times when you first start out judging, you want to nitpick. And instead of looking at the good things, you're looking to find the bad things. And what they're finding is small bad things, not enough to knock the bird out. So you have to get that in perspective. That we're looking at the overall bird, the overall type, then we go to color, then we go to condition. I've seen new judges come on and it's all condition. If it ain't bird ain't in condition, that Wilbur Stuffer taught me that years ago. He didn't give a hoot about condition. He wanted type
10 points.
first. He gets 10 points.
10 points.
So he was a SOB on people that judged on condition. So you have to, that scale of points in my mind, that's the most important part of that book. And we talked about making I used a chart for years where with an Excel spreadsheet where I'd go score my own birds. And you're harder on your own birds usually than anybody else would be. But then if you're making any progress down the road. If I don't like that 5-point head, then what am I going to do to fix it? And, did I get better as I went? If not, then we have to go do something else. But I think that part of the bird, knowing your point cuts and knowing how much it's worth, because I'll hear exhibitors tell me some crazy things in the aisle, and then I know they don't know their point cuts. And that's my first question. Well, how many point cuts is that? When they tell me what's wrong with the bird I picked, I said, we got a minute to look at it. We're doing this mathematical calculation in our heads theoretically to get that bird to a point, and we got to. In my mind, I have to be able to justify to you, Don, why your dark brown or your light brown leghorn female was first. This one down here was fifth. This one was third or fourth. I got to be able to tell you the difference between those 5 birds. That's what they hire us for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that can't. And I ain't going to say that I'm going to always be right, but in my mind, that's what I was thinking when I was going through that class.
And then what a lot of judges do, and probably a lot of breeders, is they nitpick. I always say they get lost in the weeds. So they throw out all these little things, and you look what's left, and it's junk that's left. That it's like, how'd this bird get up here with all the? Yeah, but that's not worth anything. I mean, you throwing a bird out for having.
For instance, how many points did the Leghorn have on its comb? 5, right?
Yep.
Right.
How many points is that one extra point on the comb?
Yep.
Or one less.
Yeah.
We have a Buff Leghorn line that for years they were notorious for 3-point combs. They're god awful looking, and it's only a couple points at the most. But they would rarely ever. They could be the best type bird in the world, but everybody hated that head. I got Rhode Island Red friends that I've got color breeders and head breeders, and they don't know shit about Rhode Island Red type, but they got a good head on the bird. They got good wing color. So you got to be able to take that whole 100 points and get it into some kind of perspective and know it. And you'd be surprised how many people, when you ask them, have no clue. Oh, that head's worth 10 points, or that head. So they never read that part of the standard. And I think we come from a time when you had to read. Nowadays everything's fed to you. So everybody, I want my standard online. Well, no, you're not gonna get online. You have to actually open up the book and read it and memorize it. And I told Mike at the Congress this year, I had to judge naked neck bantams, and there was like 30 or 40 of them. So I just stopped, went over, got my standard because I wasn't sure all these colors are recognized, and I wanted to refresh my mind on type. And so even though they call us judges, we don't know it all every minute of the day. Sometimes we got to go refresh what we know about it. And I always preach that scale of points, though. I don't think that can ever be said enough, that you have to understand the scale of points for your breed, and then you're a breeder.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, then you're just replicating chickens. So, and I know that you do it, and
anybody can replicate.
Anybody can replicate. And usually, like with your breed and our breeds, they're good for 5 years. So if you had light brown leghorns, you could start out with a good trio, but within 5 years' time, you're going to screw them up and need to fix it. And
I
that's,
think you can do it faster than that if you don't do it. And
yes,
yeah, that brings me to a thing, tips for beginners. These days, the biggest problem I see in the fancy that holds, there are people I consider master breeders, and it's a relatively small number of people that I respect greatly for their breeding knowledge. Um, and then there's this medium layer of people that are good. They're masters at condition. They earn a decent amount of awards and stuff. But the biggest thing I see is a thing I call chasing champions. So you take White Rocks, for instance. Let's go White Rock large fowl. So and so this year won champion White Rock large fowl, whatever show you're at. And every year they keep winning. So people start buying birds from them. And what happens is maybe they start with two different bloodlines, and now they're bringing in this new blood. If they do it long enough, it'll homogenize out, the genes will homogenize out, and it'll start to transfer to be more like this new bloodline you keep adding in, especially if you bring it in on the male side. But the old timers, they had a lot of wisdom there. Keep your male line pure. If you're a beginner, start out, go at least 3 years, don't bring anything in. If you do, buy it from the same person you got your start from, because you don't know enough about the breeding tendencies of your bloodline to
yep,
really know what you need or how to add it. Um, then the next adage, I would say the keep your male line pure. So you bring it in through the female. If you bring it in both ways, say females out of that male and put them back under your males, but keep your line male pure, you will have the smallest amount of problems. Jim Rines used to say he and his dad before the time of genetics said the male's 2/3 of the mating. And I used to, that's wrong. That's wrong. They're 50-50. No, birds are usually lettered as ZZ and Z0 for chromosomes, right? The female is Z0. She has one chromosome that carries a lot of information and one that carries very little. The male is ZZ. So your male literally has two of the three chromosomes that transfer most of your color information and other than mitochondrial DNA, most of your a good bit of your type and stuff. So yeah, you can make a lot of improvements with a male, but and a good example of this would be a red gene based variety being crossed to silver gene based variety. We can do this as partridge rocks and silver rocks, so we don't just talk leghorns. If you're crossing partridge into your silver rocks to try to improve type and size or feather pattern, you can do that. You don't save the sons of that cross, no matter how good they look, because genetically they've got one red gene, one silver gene. And what'll happen is their daughters will get this brownish look instead of the clean,
tinge.
crisp
Yep,
look, right?
exactly. You
Yep.
remind me, there was an old book, my great uncle that started me in chickens. It was an old livestock breeding book, and I've got it here somewhere. It was from the 1900s. But their breeding method was for everything. I don't care if it was horses, hogs, sheep. It was called get a sire, the get a sire method. And that's exactly this thing you're talking about. The male was 2/3 of everything. And back then, those guys bred livestock to sell the bulls and the steer, or not the steers, but the bulls and the hogs, the boars and everything off to other breeders. So they always was emphasized that male bird or that male subject of the species. And the more times you can take that male back to his daughters, offspring, whoever, the more you're going to stamp in those good traits. So they always said, and I think I wrote an article on it years ago, but you want to find the best male birds you can when you're starting. I don't care if you're starting in anything, and use that male bird until you get a better one. And that kind of reiterates that old stuff that was in my head, because that get a sire method my uncle always preached, and he raised Belgian draft horses, Guernsey cattle, and Duroc and Hampshire hogs, and he always sold off all the extra stuff for breeding. So the boars we never fixed most of them; they all went to somebody else to use, but they always looked alike. That was his other thing, and I can tell a good breeder. And I always give John Miles credit for this, but years ago at Columbus, I judged the White Rock Bantams, the whole Bantam Rock class, and I was going down through this, and I seen number 6. Well, number 6 cockerels look like his cockbirds. The number 6 pullets look like his hens. There's some consistency all down through this, and they showed enough birds. They're not all over the place. I said, that guy's a breeder. I don't know who it is. I said, that guy's a breeder because all his birds look the same. Even his trios, they matched up and all look the same. Well, it was John. And, John learned from Shelby and Waybeck and all those good guys on the East Coast rock breeders. So he knew what he was doing. But to me, that's what you want to get to. It doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of these people, like Mike and I talk all the time about, they start out and they go to that one-day show and they never talk to nobody. They're too big. They have a hurry to get there, get them in, get them cleaned up, and get home. So, what we learned years ago at these shows, now they don't get. So they hopefully this other stuff like we're doing here today, and the old message boards we used to have, that kind of disperse some information to them that they're not getting like we got in the old days.
You say about White Rocks, and I remember that you come and got me on Miles's birds, and it's the same thing when you judge now Matthew Burnett. I mean, good God, he'll have 6 cockerels in there, and I'm thinking, well, one of these cockerels is probably Champion Rock.
Yeah, you just got to figure out which one. Yeah,
I mean, you're looking for the tiniest shit to put it forward, right? Because they look just alike.
That's actually enjoyable judging.
It's fantastic because you can't mess up.
Yeah, well, normally anybody can find the best bird and the worst bird. It's kind of justifying everything in between. But when you get 8, 10, 20 good birds, then you've got to go to work, and
that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, that nitpicking counts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that same way with Old English. A lot of those, you get into a class of 75 or 100 black Old English pullets. It's like, here we go. So I mean, that's fun. I mean, class of 3 or 4, and one's good, and the other ones are crap, and I still have to have a reserve, and nothing looks alike. That's terrible to judge. But man, if they all look and they're all good chickens, that's fun.
Now, I'll tell you, one of the methods that would be a tip for new poultry people. All right, you're out there, you're breeding. What you're doing is you're bringing your interpretation to the standard as close as you can make it to ideal, and you're showing it to your friends, your peers, and the judge, and you're competing with it. So the best way to make an impression on the judge is not to show one good bird, but to show 5 deep.
Yes.
And try to, if you can do cockerels and pullets, 5 deep each. If you can do cocks, hens, cockerels, and pullets, and show some depth. As you said, John made an impression on you. Now, I'll give you a little thing about John Miles. Nationally competitive, tough white rock bantams. They're absolutely gorgeous. And John knows what he's doing breeding. He's got an excellent source of feed and an excellent conditioning program figured out for him. So he's got his bases covered the whole way. Genetics, that line of white rock bantams goes back to John Waybeck, Charlie Waybeck's dad.
Yep.
And that was the best line of white Leghorn, white Plymouth Rock bantams out there. One of the things that's really classic of it is the tight feathers on the underline, so that the legs are distinct, the breast is molded, looks like a little carved statue of an ideal 3-dimensional bird. Danny Feathers had that line of Plymouth Rock Bantams before he died. He told me how he got them. He tried to get them direct from John. John said, "There's only 3 people I know that breed my line pure. I'm out. Contact these 3 people." And I think Danny got them from 2 of the 3 people. He never told me who those 3 were. But Doug Cawthorn down in Virginia, poultry judge, I don't know, it's his story, but he ended up with a setting of eggs or a trio of John Waybeck Bantam Plymouth Rocks when he was young. And he kept that line going. He's still got it. And of course, that's been shared over to John Miles.
Yeah.
But
I remember the Waybacks.
John
Yeah, I
Miles'
remember
dad was a
Charlie.
great poultry breeder too. In fact, trophy I got up there behind me is for winning champion of show the year John Miles Sr. passed away. I got lucky that year. Still one of my favorite wins. But yeah, and John and Large White Rocks, he's done his own thing with them, but the root of what he's got goes back to Shelby Harrington's White Rocks.
Right.
And
Yep.
Shelby's going back to Charlie.
Yeah.
I mean, he had added a lot of stuff in them, but the original birds were from Charlie way
Yeah,
back.
so
So they had a big influence on a lot of them, as did the Hallbacks. I know Shelby had Hallback birds as well, mixed into them. All right, we better wrap it up. We're at hour 25. We really went on, Don.
Yeah. Well, let me give one more tip to people
Okay.
that are getting into this. Learn how to build pens.
Yep.
Take
yeah, exactly.
take some carpentry classes if you need to, if you don't have someone that can teach you. But learn how to build your own pens because you're gonna, as you get into this, you're gonna want to change your setup around, and you need to be able to do it yourself.
Many
Um,
times, if you're like us, you change things many, many times because you're always looking, learning it, and you get that system down that what works best for you.
yeah.
And
So I agree.
every breed's requirements different. So
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
what works for coaches don't work for Leghorns, don't work for games, but yeah, you're right, and I think that's one of the. I think Jeff mentioned it when he was on here. Get your facilities ready. Don't do like Dustin. Don't get the birds and then figure out where you're going to put them. But get your facilities ready before you get your birds. And if you think you're going to need 10 cages, get 20.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I always
That
I
that
built a 30
4 foot
by
fence.
50 and it should have been 60 by 100. So you're never going to
That
build a building big enough and never going to have enough pens.
that 4 foot fence that works for big coaches ain't going to work for them Leghorns.
No, exactly.
Leghorns are not
So
challenged by height.
no, they're not challenged by height. The higher the rafters, the better they'll like it. Don, it was really good having you on here.
Yes. Thank you.
Sometime
Likewise.
this winter or something, let's when things slow down for everybody and nobody knows what to do, let's get you back on. Let's just talk
All right.
about some more things. I think that'll be really nice. I would like to kind of do shows in the winter, maybe the January, February stuff, where we could even recap things we've seen at shows this year and talk about things. I think because people get a little bored. I mean, you're starting to hatch and you're getting incubators, but you get kind of antsy because if you live up here, there ain't a damn thing to do. Unless you go load your chickens up and drive, 15 hours, you're not going to
Shovel
show chickens.
snow.
So
Shovel
yeah,
snow.
and shovel snow on the way there. So I appreciate it. I learned some things today, which is not unusual because I have a lot of room for things to go in there because there ain't a hell of a lot up there that most people find valuable. So I have a lot of room in there, but I really enjoyed
That's
listening
one
to
thing
you.
I can say for all of these that we've done. So this is number 13. I've learned something that I didn't know in every one of them.
Yes.
And I've been at it 54 years. So I always tell everybody you never know everything and there's always a better way to do everything. So
And
you
you
learn.
you never should stop learning.
Nope.
You should always have an open mind to learn. Maybe what you learned today, when you tried, it won't help for you. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That means it works for them, and it may work for you.
Yeah.
So we did the update on ivermectin last time out. We got any further updates? Are we
Nope.
good?
Still good. Boy, this has really took off. So Caitlin's probably cussing me because she's probably busy. Both things, the ivermectin and the
Yep.
Taurus mite medicine. Lots of people have
Excellent.
messaged me about being mites getting immune to permethrin. And I said, well, they won't get immune to this stuff. At least I've been using it for 20 years now. since Frontline first come out, and it still kills them. And it just got the bigger residual. So it lasts for about 3 months. And with the new stuff, I've seen the same thing. So if they've got bugs and you spray them on them, I have a tendency now to go back and check them every week or so. There's no more bugs on them. And I just got florum tested yesterday, and I pulled out some, white leghorns. If you just had them around to draw the mites, I think that would be their sole purpose. Because if I don't have mites nowhere else, that white leghorn over there is going to have mites on him. Usually a cockbird. And I looked at both cockbirds because she blood tested them both. There wasn't a single bug on them. So
yeah,
so
I
that's
did
doing
that on the
good.
coaches too.
The ivermectin thing. So that what I had read is an article from the Pigeon guys about ivermectin, and it's because Dustin asked me after we got done last time about its antiviral properties and why they were using it during COVID and whatever. Well, the pigeon guys, there's some pigeon diseases that are kind of related to chicken diseases, but they're Newcastle based and they're really hard to cure. And there's no antibiotic working for them now. They've one of them's the adenovirus, and there's PMV and a couple other ones. But there was some, I'm not going to call it research, but there was some chatter that ivermectin drench would cure it. So I thought, well, Merrick's is a virus. We've heard all this crap about over the years. Why wouldn't it work for Merrick's? So far, I told Mike and I told some other people that if I left them in the brooder till they were hitting the top of it, they will never get Merrick's and never die. It's when they go down on the ground in the dust and the dander, and that's when it starts hitting them. And usually at about 3 months, I'll start losing a few. So now I've got some 4, 5, 6 month old birds and some, 1, 2, 3 month old birds all on the ground, all in the dust. And I'm going to say this, and I just cross my fingers every time. I haven't lost one yet to Merrick's. So
I've been following this. I've been with great curiosity.
Yeah. So I I tell everybody what I do. I have them I have 10 4x8 pens that I grow out in. They're dog kennel type pens, and they're all on auto waters. So there's a 5-gallon water. What I do, and they go through 5 gallons of water a day in all those pens, but I'll run it every Monday, every other week. So and sometimes I'll do it like Monday and Tuesday if I think they burn through that water too quick, just to make sure they got it. I haven't noticed any ill effects of it, other than probably ain't going to have no worms or any lice or mites, because anything that's blood sucking is probably going to get. But I haven't had anything sickness related. So I haven't had I got these water moths a while back, and they got that puffy eye. Their eye just puffs up, and and I've had to really mess with them. Actually stuck them on this ivermectin water as well, because they're on a little 1 quart deal. And I think I've finally got them under control. I've got like 10 of them, and there's always one of them sick. And normally I don't baby stuff. It would usually go in the trash can if it's got that all the time. But if I did that, I'd be out of the water mold business. So I think I've got them all settled down. But so far, I can't say that it's doing anything bad, and I can't say that it doesn't work. So
no, and an update I got from AJ today is that White Rock Mailbird's still alive.
Okay.
That had got it real bad that Dustin was talking about. He's hit him, and he's still cranking. He's still going.
I think if you can get them before it's really done. So I tried it on. I have some pills too that I got from the pigeon supplier. I had one that was already, stiff-legged. He was still alive, and he was fine. He was eating fine, but he's still. Yeah, it won't cure if it goes that far. He didn't die from it. I mean, normally if they get that, they go off feed and they just go down and die. He never died from it, but he still had the stiff legs, so it didn't cure that part of it. But I think if you can get to him, this is more like a preventative thing. If you can get to them before it starts messing with their motor functions, I think you're okay. And that's where we're at with that. So,
all right. No more updates. We're still. Your book should be out. Should be going to the printers probably, and I'm thinking maybe 10 days. So we got our articles in today. Week 10 days maybe.
She was asking some things that normally. Once she's wrapping it up. So judging lists and some other things. So I think they're getting close on that. I expect the standard back the first of the month. I kind of just in my mind
too.
From when we finally got everything signed off, I think that's going to be out. I know we're over 200 pre-sales, which is 1/10 of the membership. So that's fantastic. Thanks everybody for getting that order in and
Exactly.
helping us with that, because the costs, printing costs are just crazy. I've
Mhm.
been doing this for probably 25 years now. And I think 2000 was the first one I worked on, maybe, or helped on, and how much it's went up cost wise in those
Well,
25
I
years
know.
to
I
get
know
this thing out.
when I got the estimate, I haven't worked on any of them. And I went, holy shit,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
a chunk
lot
of
of money.
money to come up with,
Yep.
so I think we've got everything down, and that's going to be
Yep.
coming. And when it flies, I think you'll see them moving pretty quick at the fall shows. And the good thing
Yep.
is that
And
the mini standard is actually going to be the bigger version. Whoops. It's going to be this bigger one. That last one we got in 2020, I couldn't even read it. And I know I got
Yeah.
bifocals and I'm old, but I had to hold it back like that. But it's going to be this size. And the good thing is it's also going to have all the colored pictures in it, where we normally don't put those in the mini. And this is a big seller because it's fairly inexpensive for kids and people just starting out. But right now you can still get the bundle, the mini and the big one, in a ABA tote for $95. So that's going to be the best deal on a standard going forward. So if you want to get that, get on the website and get it out. I think
and we'll be back.
We'll be back this weekend or the first of the week.
First of the week with Mr. Troy Roche from Canada. We were going to have two Canadians on at once because of the exchange rate. I needed two of them to equal one of us. But hey, we're going to go with Troy and we'll see what happens.
We don't have enough room up there for everybody.
And then we've got more. We'll probably have at least two next week, and we'll just keep going till we can't go no more. So, Don, again,
Yes, thanks,
good
Don.
having you. Welcome back anytime. If you think of something you want to talk about, you think is important, get a hold of Matt and I, and you're more than welcome to come back on, my friend.
My pleasure. You
All right.
guys done
Good
a great
talking to you.
job. Keep it up.
Thank you.